they're not necessarily abuse, but substance use with creativity because there's obviously a lot of people, a lot of famous people that, there's an aura around them with substance use and things like that. And I guess the big question is, are drugs an imagination hack?
I think that they are, but
To a point.
you have to be careful that they don't become an imagination crutch,
Yes.
and that's the problem.
Right.
So, and it's not, and I even think hack is a strong word. I think they are an imagination assistive device, but that's it. Yeah, I think that the risk is that when you depend on them as the crutch, and then you feel like you can't make anything creative unless you partake in the same substance over and over and over, and that becomes the problem. Yeah, I mean, what do you think? What's your position on that?
It probably depend on the substance. I think most substances will kind of open up your mind in a different way. And there's definitely, I think we talked at one point about the whole LSD thing with the Beatles and how their music kind of got different after that. And so there's definitely some stuff there. And you think about a song like Bohemian Rhapsody and you're like you want to talk about when you were talking about adding all that stuff onto the chorus at the end. You want to talk about like Freddie Mercury or Queen or whoever, whoever was, if it was Freddie or if it was all of them or whatever, they were literally making this big epic song. And honestly, I think that if you go that far with it, most of the time it's not going to turn out like Bohemian Rhapsody. But in this case, it worked out. Now, I don't know what drugs they were on or if they were even on drugs, so I don't want to speculate. My imagination is that they probably were on drugs. I think most artists are on something. And, you could even get picky about drug because it's like, okay, well, most people are on drugs, right? Like if you're drinking caffeine or, you know, I mean, everybody does a drug specifically, depending on how really you want to define drug. But it's mainly weed for me. I don't drink alcohol. I could see one person I'm thinking of is Amy Winehouse. And I don't know, obviously, she had a huge song called Rehab. And it's kind of ironic when you look at that song now because, you remember the kind of the hook of that song. They want me to go to rehab, but I said, no, 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 or something like that. And then obviously she passes away a few years later or whatever from alcohol poisoning. And she had a
Yeah.
big problem. Was alcohol making her music better? I have no clue. Weed for me, it does and it doesn't because I think there's a limit. I think you have to find that limit because obviously you can't be too intoxicated on anything because then you're just not going to get anything. Or you're going to get that illusion, right? That illusion like where everything's
Yeah.
great and then you read it like sober and you're like, "Oh, what the fuck is this shit? This isn't right."
Yeah, I've had that before. I read an article just the other day about weed and creativity where they said there was a positive correlation between lower doses of weed and higher creative output, and then there is a certain point where you go too far, and then
Motivation
because
becomes
it
a
has
problem. Yeah. When you go too
yeah,
far on any drug,
motivation.
I think motivation, except for maybe cocaine. I've never done cocaine, but I've heard people in their stories and they're just like, "Oh, it's the greatest thing ever." And I'm like, "Well, I don't want my heart to explode, so I'm good with that." But
I guess you just got to find the right weed, cocaine, alcohol
right,
cocktail, and
right.
that's probably just
Yeah,
the magic pill,
yeah.
whatever they would call that. Yeah, the study said like weed was associated with a being able to more easily connect two ideas that are far apart, because it's making you access disparate sorts of all these different like ideas, and so that is a big point of creativity.
Right.